Jesus Freak here. It's been a few years since many of you have probably seen this. It's a Reina-Valera 60 and KJV Diglot Bible. Now, the Reina-Valera is copyrighted and in some of its editions, and some of its editions aren't. This is kind of comparable to how, say, if someone were to update the King James, they might copyright their update. It got me to thinking, what if I were to try, and I know this would be a lot of work, it might be easier if there were more eyes on it than just me, to determine how much of this translation, by virtue of being identical to earlier editions, 1865, 1909, maybe even 1602 or whenever it was that the original edition was published. Or even compare against the LBLA and NBLA. And then determine, how much of this is safe to use, and how much needs to be retranslated to have a public domain modern Spanish version, in the same vein as the KJV. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but the nature of Spanish means that it would, for example, be easier to render the Latin of Erasmus or Beza, or even Jerome in some cases, into Spanish than English. For the obvious reason that Spanish, being descended directly from Latin, is more like Latin than English is. There are a few things that I'd probably do differently than the Reina-Valera. I probably would want the names of books to be in line with the names of the books in the KJV. That's a minor thing. And for the most part, they kind of already are. A bigger thing is that I would probably want to do what other modern Spanish translations use, and use El Señor to translate the Tetragrammaton instead of using Helba. In most cases, there's probably a few I'd leave it. Just like the KJV. The idea being that it's not about Ruckmanism so much, it's about the ability to have a diglot Bible and not have oddities resulting from differences in the translations. Which there are a few of these. And one of them using the Lord and the other using Jehovah is just one of them. And, for example, try to get this in the camera frame here. Look at Revelation 22:14 here. You see in the English translation here, it says, "Blessed are they that do his commandments." But look at the Spanish. It's bienaventurados los que lavan sus ropas. That doesn't mean the same thing, and that could be a problem in a diglot translation like this. In fact, while it's very possible that lavan sus ropas reflects the more correct text, as for example, a translation of the Latin Vulgate says, who washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb, suggesting that the critical text reading of wash the robes may well be an original reading, even though the majority reading is do his commandments. You'll find, for example, do his commandments is what you'll find in Robinson Pierpont. But wash his robes is what you find in Nestle Aland. And there are a few other places where there might be some differences. And again, Revelation 16:5. If you see the English here, it says, "And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which wast and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus." Here it says, Justo eres tú, O Señor, el que eras el santo, he who is and who was the Holy One. And that is actually a Textus Receptus reading. That's what you'll find, for example, in Erasmus. I think it's even what you're going to find in Stephanus. It's not until a few editions into Beza's printings you start finding which shall be instead. And these are minor differences. And I might actually agree with what's in the Spanish translation here more than the English. But what I'd want is something that can be paralleled conveniently with the KJV. And so it'd have to reflect the KJV. I don't want something like the so-called Ray Jaime version, which of course that's incorrect in and of itself, because King James I and VI was not called Jaime in Spanish, it was called Jacobo. That translation was done by a bunch of extreme Ruckmanites who at least acknowledged that it's not a bad idea to translate into other languages, but they believed in translating literally from the KJV and made a number of mistakes because of it. It's just something I had in mind. Jesus freak out.